Hello, everyone. This is game 6 of my Blitz tournament at WOSC in Barcelona. Let's get started. The player I'm playing against here has actually played an insane amount of games on 81 Dojo. I've actually played him quite a few times there. His ID, I think, is Christoph Yu. Um, and I completely forgot how he plays until he took my bishop here. And I remembered, oh yeah, he's the one that plays Tsujichi Gaikaku, or wrong diagonal bishop, all the time. So this is like his pet strategy, and I would say it's probably a pretty good blitz strategy. You really have to know what you're doing in order to defend it. I hadn't prepped at all against this, really. I generally don't face it. Um, and so I was winging it essentially from here. And actually, I think right here, even already, I make a mistake. And I think I go ahead and make a silver move up here. And he goes ahead and immediately pushes his pawn. So I'm going to switch to Lishogi real quick. So this is the position. And I played this move silver to 6-3, which is already a mistake. So here I already have an advantage because, he basically spent 2 turns to make the bishop exchange happen, right? He brought his bishop up and then he exchanged. So in effect, this is like a 2-turn loss, wrong diagonal bishop. And basically, what I should do here is bring up my gold. And the reason why is that this bishop is scoping 8-3, and he's going to get a pawn trade no matter what. And so I need to protect 8-3 with another piece to prevent the pawn drop. So for example, here, if a pawn drop happens, I can just take it with the gold. But yeah, you'll see what happened in the game. Let's go back to the game. You'll see that this pawn trade is happening in the game, but now when he drops the pawn, I can't take it with the gold, so I have to actually run with the rook. So I'm already thinking like, oh no, I've done it now. And here even I move to the 5th file, thinking, okay, like his bishop is on the 5th file, I can go ahead and start pushing this pawn maybe. The problem with that is it's just too slow, and my opponent's attack is way too fast. I went ahead and defended with the gold here. He goes ahead and sacks his pawn off and finds this really nice move, dangling pawn. So now I can't ignore it, because if it promotes, I basically lose the game. And so I had to try and get a little creative. And there's a proverb, a very, very prominent proverb, which is, in order to defend against major pieces, bring them closer, right? And so I believe my move here is going to be pawn drop 2-5 in order to bring the rook a bit closer. And that way, when I try and defend, I don't know if I can't remember if I went up with my silver to 3-7 or dropped the bishop on, or is that 3-6? But that way it gains tempo on the rook. So that was my idea with this pawn drop. Bring the rook closer to try and defend against it. Yeah. Okay. So I decided here to drop the bishop, because if I go up with the silver, he can just sack his bishop off, and then I don't have enough pieces defending on 2-7. Yeah. So now, because of that pawn sack that I made, he has to retreat his rook. But now, I have to deal with like a potential bishop drop onto 2-7. So I can't remember exactly what I do, but yeah, let's just see what happens. And again, like, this is just a very, very sharp opening. He plays it all the time, so he knows all of the tricks that he has in these positions. And because I've played him quite a bit online, I knew that I really just needed to survive this initial barrage of attacks. And then I should have an advantage later in the game, because he's very, very strong in the early game, because he's like an opening specialist with this. Okay, that's right. So what I decided to do is drop this bishop, and what the bishop drop does is it defends against a drop on what is that, on 2-7. But it also eyes promoting the bishop all the way on 8-3. So he went ahead and pushed the pawn here. I decided to take. What I didn't want to do is block my bishop in. Now I'm looking at it, maybe it would have been better for me to advance. I'm not really sure. So yeah, he goes ahead and drops the bishop, and I promote my bishop. So really quickly, let's switch back to Lee Shogi. So basically, the position on the board right now is somewhere in here. Here, actually, the AI thinks taking the pawn is bad. It thinks I should just retreat the silver. And even then, I mean, I don't know. I don't really understand the retreating the silver move. But my opponent missed an opportunity there as well. So when I took this pawn, the reason why the engine doesn't like this has nothing to do with like the bishop or even a bishop drop. It's that he has this pawn drop on 7-6. So obviously my silver is trapped. And really, so the only moves I have is actually to drop a bishop, or sorry, drop a pawn on 8-7. And what this does is, if he takes with the gold, for example, or if he runs the rook, which I mean he's not going to do, I can actually then take the pawn and retreat my silver. So it forces him to take with the rook, and then I can drop another pawn. And if the rook retreats, then I get to go ahead and escape my silver. So what he's going to have to do is actually let me trade these pieces off. But it turns out that this trade is fine for him, because now all I have is a gold in hand, and this bishop drop is just not defendable anymore, right? So it kind of feels bad. Like, it feels like the silver was trapped and you don't want to trade it off. But actually, this would have been very, very good for him. And probably if this happens, I don't know if I can come back from this much of a deficit. But yeah, so obviously this isn't actually what happens. So let's get back to the real game. I just wanted to show that variation there where he could have dropped that pawn to get like a really big advantage. But instead, okay, I go ahead and make a horse. And now for him, like, he has to just retreat the horse too. Like, that's why the bishop drop wasn't like a gigantic threat. And that's why I decided to take this line, because I thought this was, relatively likely to happen, where I actually get to make a horse. And once I make a horse, like, okay, like, things can happen, is what I was thinking, right? And so what I end up doing, I actually, if you think about it, actually, and you look at what ended up happening in the game versus some of those variations that we just looked at, basically I ended up doing things in slightly the wrong order. It's like in this position, the engine likes, what I end up doing is dropping this pawn. Engine wanted to do this first, right? And the big difference is, I guess, instead of making the horses, it just wanted to get the silver and the gold traded off. But again, this ended up being better for me just because that pawn drop didn't happen on the head of my silver. So we did end up trading golds here, and one of the tricks and traps that's in the position for me in this case is a king rook fork, right? His king is still on the home square, and now I've been able to get his rook up to a square where I can skewer it to, or pin it to the king. And so now I'm sitting here just thinking, how do I get the bishop? How do I get the bishop? How do I get the bishop? Because I really want to play bishop drop on 1-5. So that's kind of my goal right now, is how can I play bishop drop on 1-5? Well, number one, I need a bishop in hand. So how can I get a bishop in hand? So that was kind of like the extent of what I was thinking here is, how do I get this horse? I don't know if that's the best move. We can take a look at it with the engine real quick, because it looks like I'm thinking about it. So yeah, let's take a quick look at the position, right? So I promoted, he promoted. Engine likes this pawn and trade. Oh, sorry, this is this is actually what happened in the game. So I ended up dropping gold here. Engine's top move is actually gold drop on 7-4. So it wants to block the horse's influence on 3. I'm just curious what happens though if there's a pawn promotion, because this looks pretty good for my opponent. And the answer is, oh, okay, yeah. Makes sense. And now if you back up, I can just take. Okay, okay. So that's why I think it likes gold drop on 7-4 the best. And then it also likes gold drop on 6-5. So that's a second best move, which obviously this is the move that I ended up playing. And then in this case, it wants my opponent to run the horse, and then for me to bring my horse back. Does it not like gold 7? So what I ended up doing here is actually gold 7-5, and against gold 7-5, it just wants to run the rook. Okay, so let's just go back to the game, run the game. I was just quickly curious here because I didn't like look exactly at this position to see what the engine wanted to do, just because, you know, I was just kind of like trying to do, really, I was just thinking, okay, how can I get this horse? So yeah, go ahead, drop the gold, and you can see on time, like I'm down 3 minutes on time. And I think, generally speaking, in blitz games, when your opponent has like this type of opening prep, what's going to happen is that you're going to be down on time, and you really need to then try and figure out like how do I kind of like set some traps? How do I come back on time? And at some point, you're just gonna have to start playing moves quickly. I think 3 minutes isn't quite. I think with 3 minutes, you can still afford to think here and there. So here I decided to go ahead and make this gold move, and then I wanted to go ahead and block the rook. And so he goes ahead and takes my pawn, threatening to take the gold. I went ahead and pushed my gold. And I think this is probably the big head scratcher of the game. He decides to take it with the horse. And number one, I don't think that it's a good move, even if I didn't have this bishop drop. But since I do have the bishop drop, it's clearly just like a big mistake, right? Like I don't know why you would give up that trade. And so now here I'm blitzing out my moves, right? It's like, oh, okay, like I got it now. Like now I'm winning. And he ran his king up. Yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and take the silver, and now I'm in a great position. I think I'm I'm completely winning here, something like minus 20, right? Because I was Gote in this game. And I mean, I guess we can pause it really quickly to see what my opponent could have done in that situation, right? So the game ended up going, I blocked his rook with the pawn. And essentially, I mean, the reason why he's doing this is that he really wants to get his rook out, right? Because his rook was trapped by this pawn, and I'm threatening to promote the pawn. And that's also very, very scary. So he decided to go ahead and sack off the horse in order to get his rook active, which I think the idea makes sense and could be good, especially since you have this direct threat. The problem, obviously, is he just didn't account for the bishop drop, right? I think it's a little bit hard to read it through, just because, you need to understand that the bishop drop exists, but also, B, you need to remember that you're actually giving me the bishop, right? Because I actually don't have a bishop in hand to make that drop right now. And so here, what the engine suggests is silver drop on 6-3. So it says, yeah, I just don't care about the rook. I don't need it anymore because now I have this great attack. Yeah, and so if my rook goes to here, and then in order to sabaki your rook, you can actually offer the trade for the horse. And that way you've gotten your rook out, basically, and yeah, this is it's not like that. It's like +5, +6, somewhere around there, 5.5, which is like solid advantage, but like still losable, for sure. Which is actually pretty surprising to me given the state of my king that I'm seeing. And actually, the longer it runs, it's getting closer and closer to like 6.3, 6.97. Which is getting to the point where like you're pretty sad if you lose from here. But honestly, he should be pretty sad if he would have gotten to here and lost. But again, like I think those moves. I mean, I don't know if they're the hardest to find necessarily. I think the silver, it's like okay, like you get to try and take the rook. But I understand how this happens, right? Where it's like, okay, I need to like get my rook in. I want to break through on the eighth file, right? Like that's the point of his opening, is to use that wrong diagonal bishop here and to be able to break through on the eighth file. And so he's thinking, how do I break through the eighth file? And it makes sense actually that that you sack off the horse for it. It's just a little bit unfortunate that he didn't see the bishop drop. So now, with 2 minutes left, that time doesn't really matter anymore. So here he goes ahead and drops the bishop, threatening my rook. And so I said, okay, I see some potential, with my rook. What I really wanted is to be able to drop a bishop on 6-1, so that way the escape square of, 8-3 is blocked off by my bishop. So what I really wanted to do is take his bishop. And so I figured, okay, I'll just slide my rook over, threaten to take it. If he runs, then I'll get to promote my rook. And he went ahead and dropped his bishop. I went ahead and took because, hey, I wanted that bishop. And it looks really scary, but now I have this bishop drop, which blocks the square. And he resigns. Now, whoops. I will admit, I think neither of us saw the fact that the horse on 4-7 actually covers the 8-3 square. Or 8-3 square. So let's move some pieces around. So we can go to the end of the game here. I guess I had like put in some extra moves. So this is the position where my opponent resigned. So obviously if he moves to 4-8, I just have a gold drop immediately. That's mate. So his only move is to run to 2-8, but what we both thought, I think, is that this is mate. Now, this is still very much winning for me. It's like minus 40 or something. But we did not see that the game could continue. I don't think. Now, maybe my opponent saw this and just understood that it's still completely winning for me. But man, would I have had a heart attack if I dropped that piece and he took it with the horse and I didn't see it. Now again, thankfully, I'm still like completely winning here. But man, this would have been scary. And I would have, how much time did I have left on the clock? A minute 47? And probably something like a minute 40. When he would have ended up taking my silver. And so yeah, like this was when I put this in the engine, because I don't think either of us realized it, and I didn't realize it until I put it into the engine after I don't even know, after the game, of course, but I wasn't analyzing my games while I was in Barcelona for a variety of reasons, and so really I didn't see this until I got back to New York, and started like putting my games into Lee Shogi so that I can review them in this way. But yeah, like got another win. I'm up to 4-2 in the first 6 games. Now, unfortunately, again, I did not record game 7 because I just totally forgot to hit play on the recording. I even set up the camera and everything. I just forgot to hit record. I did end up losing that game. And that's really all I remember about that game. I don't even remember what the opening was, what happened. But I did lose my last game of the Blitz tournament, unfortunately. And so I ended up the Blitz tournament 4-3. I ended up the team tournament 0-3. But at least I got some wins under my belt and some momentum going into the main tournament. So yeah, thanks for watching, and the next video will actually finally be some main tournament games from Barcelona. So thanks for watching, and hope to see you next time. Thank you.